on NFL Network in Berea, Ohio. We're talking about this team, the running backs as well, and Nick Chubb, a little touchdown catch there. I know he's been working on his pass catching skills as I'm here with Aditi Kinkhabwala and Joe Thomas is out on the field, and Joe's watching practice live with us. So Joe, what's catching your eye right now?
Well, it's fun watching this tight red zone 7-on-7 drill and watching the different route combinations that Freddie Kitchens' offense is going to be featuring here, and just trying to see how Steve Wilks wants to pass off some of these different combinations and seeing the competitive nature between the offense and the defense.
Yep, it's always fun to see who's winning the day, the offense or the defense. But Aditi, we saw Nick Chubb there with the little touchdown catch, and we know that this team brought in Kareem Hunt, and he's suspended for the first 8 games. But what do you expect from, first, Nick Chubb, and how does that help him having that pressure of Hunt behind him?
Well, first of all, Nick Chubb is a kid that, thus far, as young as he is, seems immune to the pressure to some degree. He's not really cowed by anybody else. He's the guy who's, I'm just worried about me. But second, I don't know that there is another player that has been talked about, another player's improvement that has been talked about the same way as Nick Chubb has been talked about in this organization. Right. Obviously, from year 1 to year 2 is when you expect the biggest jump from a player. But Nick Chubb had a heck of a first year a year ago. He's looked great all year. Very, very reliable. He's proven to be that he can be a 3-down back. And when you go back to Duke Johnson being so upset, the way that he was used last year, then again in June, again in the spring, staying away from OTAs, coming back in June and reiterating that he wants a trade, hiring a new agent in Drew Rosenhaus, who, as of last week, had already had 2 conversations with the Browns, although the Browns have maintained, guys, that their plans include Duke Johnson, because as you mentioned, Kareem Hunt will be suspended. So they need 2 running backs. It's not as if they can get by, but Duke Johnson, with just Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson hasn't practiced just yet, and there's another young guy by the name of Hilliard, Damon Hilliard, I believe, who's Dontrell Hilliard, who's looked very good thus far as well with the opportunities that he's had.
Yeah, and it is really interesting with the Duke Johnson situation, because Freddie Kitchens, he did mention, like, we have him here, we like him, we want to use him. This is a guy that could help us win games. And we know, Joe, that this is a running game that, you know, it's a work in progress, and Nick Chubb was really good last year. He really flashed.
Nick Chubb is an incredible running back, and it's going to be really fun for Browns fans to see what he looks like after being the feature back all offseason, where he can really hone on his skill sets. And then he's going to be the feature back going into the season, which wasn't the case last year. It wasn't until they traded Carlos Hyde that he became the feature running back. And so I think once you become the man at that position, you start to take a little bit more ownership in that position. And I think you're going to see tremendous growth out of Nick Chubb from where he was even last year.
You know what, but let me ask you, Joe, because I know we've talked about this, and Colleen and I were chatting about this. Duke Johnson, we're looking at him right there, number 29. He's got the hood over his head. He hasn't practiced. So him being very vocal and saying that he wants to trade, and then Baker Mayfield, the quarterback, being equally vocal, saying, hey, we want guys who want to be here. And I wish that Duke hadn't said that publicly. That was kind of what was lost. Baker was saying, if you're unhappy, keep it in-house, don't go public. How did all that play to you as you're watching that from afar, when you've been inside this locker room and now you're a couple years removed? What do you think of that?
Well, I think from a player's perspective, you always want to keep the drama in-house as much as possible. When you're talking, especially business stuff, you don't want that to go public, because there's really nothing good that can come of it from a team's perspective. And when you look at it from the Browns' perspective, they want to keep Duke Johnson. He's a good running back. He's a very important weapon that can be used in this offense a little bit maybe more sparing than he wants, but he's definitely a weapon that they would like to keep, because while Kareem Hunt is here, he is still suspended for the first half of the season, and once he comes back, you don't know what you're going to get from him, because he has been out of football. And so Duke Johnson is that insurance policy that they really want to keep, and so I think that's why it's been a little bit of a tough situation for the player and the team.
And you know what, Joe, you make another good point in that John Dorsey has been very vocal in saying that Freddie Kitchens has some really good plans for Duke Johnson. And Freddie said that, and there's John Dorsey right there as we look at him.
Look at
the
that.
GM.
Perfect timing.
I know,
How is
right?
he wearing a sweatshirt? It is so hot out here.
He has 7 of them. He wears them every single day. And his 8-year-old son also has one.
Is it almost like when wrestlers are trying to make weight, like, and they wear the plastic suits? And
Colleen, you keep talking about that sweatshirt.
What I do
You'll
when I'm
get one.
talking about like someone running in a plastic suit. But it's remarkable that he has a sweatshirt in. But continue.
So
Sweatshirt
my
on.
point being is that the Browns do say that they have special plans for Duke Johnson. They do plan to use him in different ways. And what's so interesting here is that as much as we talk about this passing offense, and even Joe just said he is so excited about the way the Browns are going to throw the ball. Just yesterday, Freddie Kitchens said, everybody slow down.
No.
We are still going to be running the football. We have to be able to run the football. You can't only do that with Nick Chubb.
And I want to ask you, Joe, about the run blocking. What do you want to see from that unit, and how can they help this running game elevate to even the next level?
Well, the Browns have a new offensive line coach in James Campen, and I really am interested to see what type of techniques that he's going to be teaching, because offensive line is one of those positions that gets taught very differently across the NFL. There's not one right way or one wrong way, but it's always interesting as a O-line geek to see kind of how he's teaching those techniques, how it fits with what Freddie Kitchens wants with this offense, and how that's going to fit with the running backs, and how Nick Chubb is going to run within the confines of this offense and the blocking schemes that James Campen and Freddie Kitchen have put together.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Joe, that you mentioned the new offensive line coach, because there was some news about the old offensive line coach, Aditi.
Bob Wiley, the former O-line coach, who was one of the stars of Hard Knocks a year ago. Bob Wiley and his belly were stars of Hard Knocks a year ago. He came out this
Can you
weekend.
go Sorry.
Is that a not? At least mine is for a good reason. Well, he very quickly this weekend, he came out and he said he didn't know that Freddie Kitchens was the man for the job. He said that the Browns should have stuck with Greg Williams, who was the interim head coach and who now, of course, is with the Jets. And then Freddie Kitchens yesterday said anybody who leaks to the media will be fired off of his staff.
So the warning is out there. I love it. I love it all. And it all came to us because of Hard Knocks.